This Torah portion is called Chukat, and the word Chukat really refers to things we do not understand. That is the point of Chukat. A chok is a law that can't be explained rationally. It's mysterious and super rational. There are things in this world that don't make logical sense, that can't be explained, but sometimes they can save your life. Sometimes they're even the purpose of your life. The Torah portion begins with the law of the red heifer, which is considered the most mysterious ritual commandment that we have. If you find a heifer that's perfectly red, not a single gray or black or brown hair on it, but only red hairs, then you can sacrifice that heifer and use its ashes in a mixture that has the paradoxical effect of rendering anybody who's ritually pure impure and rendering anybody who's ritually the other way around. If you're pure, you become impure. If you're impure, you become pure. So that's a bit of a mystery. There is the famous story of Moses hitting the rock, and sometimes we skip over the fact that it is utterly mysterious that either by speaking or by hitting, you could bring water out of a rock. In this week's Torah portion, Aaron senses through means that are not disclosed that he will die. How does he know the timing? But he ascends to Mount Nebo, he puts the clothes of the priesthood onto his son, and he's not just imparting a uniform or authority with that act, he's giving over his spiritual power. And everyone witnesses his death. The Israelites complain about their food and the scarcity of water in the desert, and they're punished with a plague of serpents. And God is delivering this plague, but Moses asks God to forgive the people. And then God resolves the plague in a highly mysterious manner. He instructs Moses to make the figure of a copper serpent and hang it at the top of a pole. And anyone who's been bitten by one of these snakes who looks at that serpent will be cured. It's a reprieve, but it's hardly logical. There is a miracle that happens in this parsha that defies the laws of physics, but we hardly talk about it. The Torah itself tells us that the miracle in Chukat was as great a miracle as the parting of the Red Sea. It says, Al kain ye'amer b'sefer milchamot Adonai et vahev b'sufa ve'et hanechalim arnon. Whenever people talk about the history of divine and holy wars, they will remember what God gave to the Jewish people at the Sea of Reeds and in the valley of the Arnon River. Well, the parting of the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, is pretty famous. The valley of the Arnon River happens in our Torah portion. The Amorites were waiting to ambush the Israelites, and tall cliffs rose from either side of this narrow valley, and the mountains moved toward each other. That's a pretty good miracle when water flows and parts, but it's another level when mountains start to move. So we have here this extraordinary miracle that the Torah itself says is like the parting of the sea. We can't explain it. We couldn't possibly have done any of these things for ourselves. In 1,000 years, I would never extract water from a rock, whether I was speaking to it or hitting it. And so the Torah portion has this theme of mystery, of divine ability, of bestowing miraculous release. There were so many ways to die in the desert. You could die of the plague, you could die of lack of water, you could die of lack of food, you could die from an enemy attack. And in all these different dangers, God answers with miracle upon miracle and mystery upon mystery that saves and sustains the Jewish people. And I was thinking about this theme that takes over the Parsha and is evident already in the first word, Chukat, because of the timing of this week's Torah portion with July 4th. Because I was actually thinking that as strong as this theme is, there is an undercurrent in the Parsha that pulls in exactly the opposite direction. In some ways, Chukat pushes against the idea of mystery. On the surface and in the title, it's all about what we don't understand or control. But subtly, it's also about the power of choice. When the Torah talks about these mysterious laws of purity that happen with the red heifer, it instructs in detail how exactly things will happen, and the laws involve the person who is impure separating themselves for a full week. But it says, if you don't stay away the whole week, or if you don't follow these laws, that person who disobeys these laws will be cut off from the community. So, in other words, the Torah is pointing out that the Israelites have the power to use or not to use this amazing spiritual technology of purification that's been given to them. They can do it to the full extent or cut out after a few days because they just don't want to wait the full week of separation. Mystery is not destiny. We get to choose whether we will enter into the mystery fully or not. And the clearest example happens when God says to Moses and to Aaron, V'dibartem el hasela le'enehem v'natan mimemav. You two speak to the rock before the eyes of all the people, and the rock will give you its water. Now, just let's crowdsource this. Tell me, who remembers how this went awry?
Instead of speaking to the rock, Moses hit the rock.
Yes, true. And anything else that you remember about the incident?
Well, he had been instructed to hit the rock the first time, so now he's instructed to speak to the rock, and he hits the rock. He did that already.
He does do some speaking, though. Do anybody remember what he says? He says to the Jewish people, "Listen, you rebels, do you want me to get some water out of this rock for you?" And then he hits the rock not once, but twice. Did you know that one, Jesse? I see you looking. Yeah?
I was getting the water part, and I was guessing, and we didn't think the water was right, and then the water was right.
The water was right. So then, and then he hits the rock twice, and water does come out. But God says to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israelite people, you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them. This is the reason given for why Moses doesn't get to enter into the land of Israel. So he clearly has some choices. There is a lot of mystery in the story. Why does God change from the first time when Moses was originally commanded to hit the rock to speech? Why does Moses blow up at the people at this moment? How does water come out of a rock at all? But Moses gets to choose. Will he follow God's mysterious ways, or will he do something else? And in this case, he chooses catastrophically, because the consequence is that he won't enter the land. Interestingly, the power of choice in this parsha is not just between God and the people in terms of purity or serpents or plagues or complaining or hitting rocks. It's also among people. The Israelites who are encountering other nations in the desert give their neighbors a choice. They say, if you want peace, we will have peace. If you want war, we will have war. Israel sent messengers to Sichon, king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your country. We will not turn off into fields or vineyards. We will not drink water from wells. We will follow the king's highway until we have crossed your territory. We just want a peaceful passage. But v'lo natan Sichon et Yisrael avor bigvulo. Sichon would not let Israel pass through his territory. He gathered all his troops and he went out against Israel in the wilderness, and he came to Yahatz and engaged Israel in battle. So Israel put them to the sword and took possession of their land. Choices have consequences. Life is not just a matter of luck and mystery, and it's not even a question of whether we're defined by nature or nurture. We are defined in the way Chukat is presenting us, this mystery. We are defined by free will, by free choice in how we respond to the mystery, and to nature and to nurture, and to every outside force and influence, including peace or war with our neighbors. We get to choose. And I wanted to talk to you about this on July 4th because there is a very particular rabbinic understanding of freedom. Freedom for the rabbis is not just the absence of tyranny in a society. Freedom lies in the power of the individual to choose. You don't get to choose everything. There's a lot that's not in your control. There's a lot that's mysterious and unfathomable, but you do get to choose how to respond to commandment and to mystery and to circumstances. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks wrote that the Jewish notion of human freedom is embedded in the concept of tshuva. Now you might say, isn't it embedded in the concept of cherut? Zman cherutenu, the time, Passover? But he says, no, it's embedded in the concept of tshuva. That's where human freedom lies. And repentance is achieved not just when you do something wrong and you realize your culpability and you say you're sorry, and not even when you offer compensation to the people you've hurt, and not even when you vow never to sin again. Complete tshuva, as Maimonides and others understand it, is achieved when you're faced with the same or a similar situation and you choose a different way of behaving. That shows not only that you're repentant, but that you're free. You are free to choose, and you have chosen differently and anew. Now, I referred to the word cherut, freedom, which is the way the rabbis describe both individual and collective freedom, but that word doesn't appear even once in the Bible. The word cherut in the Bible means something like engraving. Freedom is not like the ink on parchment that can be smudged or erased. Freedom is etched into us in the way that the tablets were etched. That's where the word cherut appears, by God's own hand. It's Independence Day, similarly, is called Yom HaAtzmaut, in a similar etymology, because just as stone is very strong and hard to break, etzem, the root of atzmaut, means bone, and it means the thing itself. Bones are inside us as freedom and independence are inherent to us. And human freedom and independence can't be separated from us any more than a holy engraving of the law can be separated from the stone tablets on which they are etched. It's just so much a part of who we are that we are free. And since we are free, the question then becomes, what will we choose? Some of the same questions face us in America and Israel today as face the Israelites in Chukat. What mysteries and laws will we choose to embrace? What mysteries and laws will we choose to resist? What will we choose to do in the face of plagues and hunger and thirst? What will we choose to do if our leaders use force when we believe God wanted them to speak? And what will we choose to do if other nations reject diplomacy and friendship? These are all very urgent questions for right now, for Israel and the United States, that are all inherent in Chukat. And notice the word that I have chosen to emphasize here in every one of the questions is choose. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute, and I thought I would close my first official sermon back with the second verse of America the Beautiful that has some of these same themes that I've been talking about. Acknowledging flaws is a form of declaring your freedom because it means you're free to change. Liberty is not separate from law. Liberty, properly practiced, supports just law, and laws enable liberty so we don't live in chaos. All of that is in Chukat, and all of that is in these verses. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet whose stern impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Well, I will just say that I'm a bigger fan, I think, than most rabbis of mystery I really like living in the mystery and in the Chukat and less in the mishpatim, the details that are always rationally available to us and can be explained. I really see a beautiful harmony in this week's Torah portion that I hadn't tracked before, of affirming the mystery and affirming the power of people in the face of the mystery. Well, I hope we'll take those questions with us into the week about how we can exercise our choice and our power, and in the ways that the Israelites faced, that we still face some of the same difficulties and some of the same deprivations. Worry about, is there enough food? Is there enough water? Is there free passage and safety where we're going? Are we going to make it through this wilderness? Will our leaders behave rightly? So many of the same concerns.